When it comes to all-around performance, nothing beats a rock-solid rifle, and in Far Cry 6, there are plenty of options to choose from. Hey there friends, it's Kodiak here, back for a new Far Cry 6 video, and today, we're putting 13 guns to the test to determine which is the best unique rifle in the game. Before we get going, I want to remind you all that ranking videos are purely subjective. I'm going to do my best to convince you why a weapon is ranked how it is, but if you disagree, that's okay. Let me know in the comments section. I really do enjoy reading feedback from the community, and I'm always open-minded when it comes to these rankings. Today we're talking about all of the unique rifles in the game. There are 13 in total, and they come in all shapes and flavors. Before we get into the rankings, we have to establish some ground rules. First is that we'll be judging these weapons based on how effective they are at killing all types of soldiers, from the most basic trooper to the most heavily armed special op commandos. Second, we'll be evaluating the weapon based on how efficient and practical they are. We'll consider things like magazine capacity, reload time, and other factors that would determine how effective a weapon would be in combat. Finally, we can't forget about how they feel. Since the dawn of FPS games, guns have just had their own sense of style, and we'll try and factor that into the equation. With those three things in mind and the ground rules established, let's dive into the rankings. Coming in at the bottom of our list is Vaquero Del Espacio. I think it's fair to say that this weapon just isn't that viable in most Far Cry situations. It's a single-shot rifle that can only hold 4 rounds at a time, and that drastically reduces its viability when storming FND bases or dealing with more than just a small handful of enemies. This is also one of only 2 unique rifles with the explosive ammo type, and while it can be good with automatic weapons, it's just not that impactful in this case. Take into consideration the weapon's mediocre damage and unexciting mods, and what we're left with is pretty much a wet noodle. Vaquero Del Espacio definitely doesn't deserve its 4-star rank in the game, but it absolutely deserves its place at the bottom of our list. To get this weapon, you need to keep an eye on the weekly insurgencies. This was the very first weapon reward utilizing that system, and just like other Ubisoft games, these things rotate on a weekly basis. You can check the black market vendor in the future if you want to purchase it using a secondary in-game currency, but chances are it'll rotate back in at some point. I'm not quite sure why they decided to make Vaya Con Dios a unique weapon. This gun is by far one of the most lackluster variations in the entire game. Rocking just 1 attachment and 2 measly mods, there's just not enough here to make this thing worth using, pretty much ever. Sadly, this is just one of those cases where using the normal version of this weapon, the BP Ruck, would be much more beneficial. You'll have more options for attachments, and while you do lose out on 1 mod slot, you still have flexibility and overall, just a better gun. To be completely honest, there's just not enough here, and on top of that, I just didn't really like the way the gun is fired. That being said, to get Vaya Con Dios, climb to the top of the air traffic control tower at the Gabriel Castillo Airport along the coast east of Mirador Cape. Moving up to the D tier, let's first talk about Noblesse Oblige. I really wanted to put this weapon at the F tier, but I actually had more success with this gun than I thought I would. Just like Vaya Con Dios, there's not a lot going on here. We're rocking just 1 attachment, poisonous rounds, and 2 mods. Where Noblesse Oblige kind of works is when you're dealing with a bunch of enemies in a big open area. Even though we're using iron sights, they're enhanced via a mod, and I found it really easy to plink targets from 50 to 75 meters away. Get 1 shot on an enemy and they become poisoned, and oftentimes turn on their fellow soldiers. Add on to that the extended magazine mod, and we've got something to talk about. It's not a weapon I'd use in every situation, but if you're sitting pretty in a nice sniper spot, I think you can make this gun work. It's not great by any stretch, but it's also not the worst unique rifle in the game. To get Noblesse Oblige, you have to head to the Museum of the False Revolution. I would recommend waiting until you reach the National Treasure quest along the main storyline, because then you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone, but you don't have to. The weapon is sitting in a glass display case on the 1st floor, just reach in and claim your prize. Also in the D tier is Viva Libertad, one of the first unique weapons you'll most likely run across in the game. Straight up, this is just a fancy beginner weapon. Soft target rounds match with a laser pointer, scream, spray, and pray, and that really doesn't work as you progress in Far Cry. I'm not saying you can't unload an entire magazine on your enemies, it just feels like Viva Libertad is missing that little oomph to help it rise higher in the ranks. The only real saving grace is that the faster reloading mod does play nicely with the rest of the build, but the other mod that rewards Supremo charge on headshot really doesn't fit the rest of what the weapon is going for. Sure, you can use this as a precision instrument of war, but that's just not how the devs intended it to be used, and there are far better options out there. With all that in mind, you can still head to the northern tip of the tutorial island. On the left side of the entrance to the bay, you'll see a giant lighthouse. Viva Libertad is in a box right inside the door in the little building at the base of the structure. Moving right along, let's look at the first of 3 C-tier weapons, Sharkbite. I rather like this weapon. It's got a solid 2x scope, comes equipped with an okay suppressor, and has 2 decent mods, one that improves the weapon's ability to cool down, and one that increases the magazine size. Everything works together, but there is something that holds this weapon back: the soft target rounds. We'll talk more about ammo as we progress through this video, but armor pen is king, and everything else just really doesn't compete. Soft target rounds are almost useless against armored enemies, and once you start pushing deeper into the game, those types of soldiers are everywhere. It's a decent gun, don't get me wrong, and things like the Spectre scope and the increased mag size are great, but without a better ammo attachment, this thing just falls a bit flat. If you do want to get Sharkbite, clear out the Roca Pequeña SAT station north of Fernando Valley. Once you kill the officer and grab the keycard, you can enter the locked supply room and loot the chest, thus claiming your new weapon. Also in the C tier is Camo Quinceanera, another weapon that falls victim to the dreaded bad ammo attachment. Once again, we're talking about soft target rounds, and as we just stated, those aren't great for progression. The rest of the weapon is solid. You've got yourself a beefy 3x scope with a nice simple reticle and a laser pointer for some extra hip fire action. It's an all-around type of weapon that feels good to shoot, but won't wow anyone. I found that the scope was probably the highlight of this gun and was actually pretty underwhelmed with the rest. I just thought it was using too many bullets to put enemies down, and while that could have something to do with my bad aim, it just felt a bit off compared to the other weapons in the game. Is it a bad unique rifle? No, but it's definitely not great. To get Camo Quinceanera, you need to complete the treasure hunt, A Rising Tide. You can find this hunt at Sierra Perdida at the southern part of the El Este region. I'm not going to walk you through every step of this one because that would be a massive waste of time, so just go inside the safe house and put the switches in this order: El Tigre del Mar, Papi Chulo, El Lucky, Clarita, and Roja Victoria. Once you do that, the locked door will swing open and you can grab yourself a new rifle. The final C-tier gun is Anton, and we're going to beep that out and just refer to this as the Anton gun so YouTube doesn't flag the video. I rather like this weapon. It makes interesting use of poisonous rounds and works decently well if you like the run-and-gun chaotic style of fighting. Both the mods Trigger Discipline and Nimble Shooter lean right into that style of fighting too. Your weapon does more damage when aiming down the sight, and you move faster while aiming. It's a double win. Overall, I'm just not a big fan of poisonous ammos. Is it fun? Absolutely, but it's not something I ever gravitate towards. I also think that the lack of any useful attachments hold the gun back. The muzzle brake doesn't really make sense here. We get a little recoil control, but outside of that, we're really not capitalizing on the weapon's potential. It's a middle-of-the-road gun that some might consider niche, but it's fun to mess around with, so it gets a C rank. To get this weapon, you need to finish the Short Chorizo questline at Montero Farm. Once you complete Fetch, you'll get a mysterious key. That key opens up a chest on Guau Guau Island, a small little island in the center of the tutorial area. Just base jump in, go to the chest, and claim your weapon. Moving up to the B tier, let's start with Hi-Fi. This is a really interesting gun that features explosive rounds and 2 sets of scopes. It's a great firefight weapon, and when Anton soldiers are rolling up on you, it's great to just whip this thing out and let loose. It's definitely designed for the more reckless players among us, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Explosive rounds as a concept aren't awful. They're decent at taking down soldiers and pretty good when it comes to the more basic vehicles in the game, but sadly, they just don't hold the candle to armor pen ammo. This is not a stealthy weapon, and as you'll notice, there's no suppressor in the mix, and that's kind of a big deal in Far Cry 6. They're definitely not required by any stretch, but if stealth is even a little bit of a factor when it comes to your approach to the game, Hi-Fi just isn't the right choice. I could argue that the mods aren't great either. Preloader increases your reload speed when changing out a partially used mag, which is meh at best, but the other mod, Gut Wrencher, which increases body shot damage, is okay, especially if you're not the best shot. It's a good gun, and the build is alright, but there are just too many other options that rise above. That being said, to get Hi-Fi, head to Rancho Bicho in the Valley de Oro. The chest is just sitting there right inside his house. I like our next gun, Zona 51. It's a solid weapon that has a lot to offer. It's the only weapon on our list today that uses incendiary rounds, and if you haven't tried those out yet, definitely give them a shot because they're easily the second choice next to armor pen. Because most targets catch on fire regardless of their armor type, they're effective pretty much across the board. The effect does take a while to do significant damage, but they're still capable of leaving their mark. Although Zona 51 doesn't have a lot else going on, the rest is pretty good too. It's got a simple scope and a solid reload mod, but other than that, it's not doing anything fancy to rise above. No suppressor, no pointer, and no reason to give it higher than a B rank. To get Zona 51, head to the east side of Esperanza. You can only get this weapon once you recover the keycard from the officer at La Divinidad Cathedral. This is an FND base, so wipe everyone out or just go after the officer, whatever's easier for you. Once you get the key, go to the bell tower overlooking the streets and unlock the armory. On the shelf is your new weapon. Now it's time to start talking about the good stuff. First up is the A-tier Surf and Turf. I really enjoy this weapon, from its looks to the scope and everything else in between. First off, yes, this is the first weapon on the list with armor-penetrating ammo, and you'll notice a theme here moving forward. I don't know if the devs overtuned that ammo type, but it works, and I'm not going to argue that. I also really enjoy the 4x ACOG sight picture in this game. It works well for me, and given the fact that a lot of the combat is done within 50 to 100 meters, I think the 4x just does the job well. Mix in the extended mag mod, which gives us more bullets per magazine, and the high ground mod, which improves our already high weapon damage when standing above enemies, and you have yourself a damn good rifle. The only thing that would make Surf and Turf even better is a suppressor, but that won't stop me from giving this weapon the rank it truly deserves. You can get Surf and Turf by completing the Crocodile Tears treasure hunt west of Cobre Shores. This is a pretty straightforward one. Follow the blood trails until you get to this pen where there's a massive alpha croc. Kill it to retrieve a key, head back up the walkways, and make your way to the small shack on the opposite side of the area. Use the key, open the door, and pick up your new weapon. Also in the A tier is Death Rites, and I'll admit this is the one weapon on the list that actually surprised me. Death Rites is a damn good rifle. All the pieces just work really well together, and while it's not exactly designed for stealth gameplay, that's alright because it's going to come in handy during a firefight. Of course, we have armor-penetrating ammo. I think we've said enough about that at this point. Also in the mix is a compensator, which reduces recoil. Alright, well, considering recoil is already pretty minimal in this game, now we're talking about a straight-up laser. Finally, the mods, Vampiric Triada, which gives us a chance to heal when dealing damage, and Headshot Suprema, which grants us extra backpack charge on headshot. And yeah, this all just works really well together. The only thing that really holds this weapon back is the lack of a sight and the relatively low damage of the AK-47 it's modeled after. But honestly, I can look right past those things and appreciate the goodness this weapon brings to the table. This piece is perfect for firefights and a gun I'd take into combat at any place, anytime in Far Cry 6. The good news is it's really easy to get to. To pick up Death Rites, head to Maldito, a small town in the El Este region. This is a pretty twisted area, and there's actually some cool lore surrounding this particular site if you're into that, but if you're not, just walk into this burnt building here, pick up the rifle. We have finally arrived, the best unique rifles in Far Cry 6. Grabbing our first S tier slot is Urushi. This weapon just checks off all the boxes from the armor pen ammo type to the insanely good large cylindrical suppressor to the Vampiric Triada mod. All of the pieces are there. Whether you're looking for a gun to take on a stealth mission or go in guns a-blazing, this thing gets the job done. I was worried that the lack of a scope was going to be a big deal, but honestly, I didn't mind rocking the iron sights. Was I able to plink off targets 200 meters away? No, not really, but that doesn't mean it's not practical in almost every other situation. The Urushi is a workhorse, and although it's a bit of a pain to get if you're just starting out in the game, it's well worth it as it's one of the best weapons in Far Cry 6 and absolutely deserving of a top spot on our list. To get Urushi, you can head to the docks on the southern part of Esperanza. There's not much to stop you here, you just have to hoof it. It's a great weapon as we already talked about and definitely worth the trip. You want the complete package, look no further than one ping only. This is a weapon that just absolutely has no equal in Far Cry 6. The weapon utilizes armor-penetrating rounds, check. You got yourself a Spectre 2x scope, check. How about a built-in suppressor? Check. And throw in a couple of solid mods that improve your weapon damage when hitting body shots and when enemies are at low health, and you've got yourself a true S-tier rifle. One ping only is a showstopper, and it can make an impact in almost every situation within the game. When going for headshots, this thing takes out almost every target with one bullet. Have crappy aiming like yours truly, well, the mods help offset your poor aim with extra damage. It's just a great weapon top to bottom and easily one of the most enjoyable to use in the game. The funny thing is, to get one ping only, all you need to do is progress through the main story. Once you reach the quest The Lion's Den, you'll receive this weapon automatically. It's kind of a bait and switch, and while I don't want to spoil any story beats, just realize that you'll get this weapon right at the start of a big quest, giving you the perfect opportunity to test out your new supergun. So there you have it, all 13 unique rifles, their locations, and our rankings. What'd you think of our list? I hope we did a good job convincing you why we gave the weapons the ranks that we did, but if you feel strongly about a particular rifle, let me know. That's what the comment section is for. If you guys do enjoy our ranking videos and you'd like us to continue this series with other aspects of Far Cry 6, please let us know by hitting the thumbs up and subscribing. This is a series we really enjoyed creating for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and we're hoping everyone enjoys it for Far Cry as well, but you gotta let us know. These take a lot of time to put together. We want to make sure people will actually watch. Finally, if you guys can't get enough Legacy Gaming, we've got 2 ways for you to get involved. First, you can join us on Discord. We've got a great group of around 7,000 spread across dozens of great games, so check that link in the description to join today. Of course, if you like what we're doing here and you want to support us even more, you can now do so by becoming a member. For just a couple bucks, you're helping evolve the channel and take our community to that next level. Check out the join button below to learn more. My name is Kodiak, and from everyone here at Legacy Gaming, thanks for watching, and play on.